GSC Season 6 has officially started, and this time, guys, I'm bringing you some D1 week-by-week coverage. We'll be going through as many matches as possible, talking about who's the biggest winners and losers. I'll, of course, be giving my thoughts and predictions on each match, so let's just jump into it quickly with Week 1.
Wow.
That is solid.
I'm not with that. This could be huge.
Oh my god, that's a huge play. Oh, here we go. Here we go.
To begin the season, we have to talk about the 8 teams competing. First up is XI, the back-to-back champions, having made no changes to their roster aside from adding solely to Bag. It's safe to say that they're the predicted favorites to win it all again. Next up is Heaven after a few seasons of hiatus, and they have the same powerful lineup as always. The only person missing from the division-winning roster is Casperinos, but even without him, this team is a strong contender to win another title. Now we have KG, SE, IF, and Daisy. 4 teams that have cemented themselves in D1 but have yet to take home the gold. IF and KG have added a couple runners to their roster, while on the flip side, Daisy has lost a few key members that led them to the finals in Season 4. All 4 teams are hungry to knock off the top dogs and prove that they are just as good. And finally, we have 2 new additions. 2S is the Division 2 winners of Season 5, and they've added even more runners to their roster. A lot of them have played in D1 before on Team 5 in previous seasons, so it's well known that they can compete. And finally, the last team in D1, Sam Legends, my team, is competing after picking up Macy to run and Burke to bag. It's going to be a difficult road, but I know we're capable of winning in the highest div. We just might need a little bit of luck to get there. My slightly biased opinion for the final standings would be XI, Heaven, KG, SE, 2S, SL, IF, and finally Daisy. Now, let's jump into the season opener, XI versus 2S. The question on everyone's mind for this match would be, does 2S even have a shot, or will this be a blowout by the top seed XI? Race 1 starts in typical fashion as the host gets their DDR track pick first. Zach survives the first few turns while Claw in the back pulls shrooms, and 2S starts strong, leading top 2 by the end of the first lap. Fox gets a lucky triple shroom pull and is XI's best shot at breaking up the top 2. Notably, he goes for safe ultra, and it pays off as he's able to run the rest of the race while Xander holds blue. 2S pulls the shock but just holds it to secure 2-3-4. Spots reset after a DC, and next race is Bowser Castle 3. XI gets a much better cut section lap 1 as Zach is griefed on ultra and fails to impact Fox from taking it, while Xander and Barney both take normal cuts. An early shock is used from 2S to slow down the top 4, and Fox fails ultra in second while Xander fails shroomless in first and also fails to block the cut. The blooper clearly messes both of them up, and while I think it was just an accidental spam by 2S, it was certainly an influential item for them as they win the race top 3. Bowser's Castle Wii is picked by 2S, but they blunder the start badly, and XI is 2-3-4 by the end of the lap, and all it takes is 1 blue from XI to get into top spots and run the rest of the race. Next race is Garden. Spots stay mixed until XI shock lap 3, dodging Fox as he chains blue. He ends up bluing both Zach and Pix, most likely due to Pix's lag. A triple Reds pull hits out 2S's only other player in the front, and XI gets a top 4. XI gets their Toad's Factory pick, but can only hold top 2 by the end of the first lap. Xander gets blued out of first, and Faisal holds down the fort, but the rest of XI is left spinning lap 3. First GP win goes to XI. Next GP, a barrage of item takes out 2S's top 2 on their DK Summit pick. Next lap, XI is blued, so Pix and Claw take over again. Fox is able to easily shroom back up into first, and it's a good race for XI. DK Mountain is picked by XI, and they start strong, hitting a lot of 2S players. However, an early blue and shock from 2S puts them back in the driver's seat, easily running the rest of the race in first with a break, which allows them to time a blue to hit second place on Fox, and it's a great race for 2S. On Delfino, XI pulls a shock at 30 and controls top 2 for the majority of the race. Late shock dodges Faisal for 1-3-4. Spots are mixed again on Sherby till XI makes a play to slow down in first and throw a blue. It hits Pix out and Faisal shrooms into first. And right after that, another blue is thrown and Faisal slams the brake. Claw gets packed up and it's a winning race and GP for XI. On Kuba Cape, XI gets into tough spots early and pulls shock early again, but 2S gets a blue and shrooms up in the top 2 starting lap 3. The XI shock doesn't impact the race enough to help them out in breaking up the top 2. 2S gets their Moonview pick, but XI again immediately gets into the top spots. They're able to run it pretty freely, and a 2S shock isn't enough to break up the XI's top positions. Last race is Maple. An early shock from XI gets Fox into first, and a lucky ground shroom gets him away from Zach as he's chasing him in a star. Lap 3, a cannon shot comes out from 2S, but it's not enough. XI wins the war, but 2S scrapes some GSC points with the final GP win. 2S put up a good fight and was within striking distance the entire time. One more exceptional race from them could have turned the results around. However, it was obvious that they were lacking frontal presence on almost every race. Especially on their BC Wii and Moonview Highway picks, you should simply not be losing that many of your top spots that early. 2S made some good calls using early shocks on DK Mountain and BC3, which were their best races. XI overall played well except for the atrocious lap 2 on BC3, and there were a few miscommunications but nothing too costing. Next match to happen was on Saturday night, my team SL versus Heaven. Our lineup was Macy, Thunder, Sam, Brody, Burke. Now, Burke had yet to even scrim with us, and I don't think that combo of runners had warred together yet either, but between Lightspeed and US South, the experience was already there. This was going to be another question of can we even compete? It's a newcomer team versus an established previous D1 winner. So the odds are not in our favor. Race 1 is another Dry Ruins pick, and Macy keeps first until Jan hits a banana snipe. Heaven controls first after that, but once again the 3-shroom cut is the deciding factor of who wins the race, as Sam is able to take the fast cut and it's a pretty even finish. Peach Garden starts off with SL getting into top 3 very early on and we get shock. Macy calls an ambitious shock on lap 2 to prevent Heaven from taking cut and knowing our bagger was in 10th. But Heaven spams 2 megas as shock comes and the result was pretty bad. We were still top 3 and now Macy had shrooms, but what really cost it is that Roast simply pulled another shock in 9th, which interrupted what could have been a huge race. DK Summit starts with Asmac swerving into first and all of SL following behind. Lap 2 Pow slows down Asmac and Brody gets into 1, and what happened lap 3 is not good. Sam is holding blue and Brody gets sniped before double, and for some reason no one said anything or remembered that we should throw the blue and Sam ends up losing it as he's bumped off double. Macy could have at least gotten into second here, but it's still a huge race for Heaven regardless. Heaven gets their Toads Factory pick, but Sam is able to get into first early lap 1 and hits a nice backspam on the cut. Macy somehow survives Asmac's triple reds, as one of them breaks on a back green and the other one breaks on a stomper going into lap 3, and somehow SL keeps top 2, but it's a +2 GP for Heaven for the GSC points. Next GP starts on Sherby and an early shock dodges 3 Heaven players. Macy pulls a couple blues, but Heaven pulls another shock to cancel one, and they end up being able to keep top 3. Heaven keeps top spots on BC Wii until Macy shrooms up lap 2, and we have shock that dodges 3 people and end up salvaging a 2-3-4. Mario Circuit 3 starts off hectic, and notably Jan pulls Bill in 8th at first set. However, Roast gets greened after barreling, so Burke is able to get into 10th. But unfortunately, the game doesn't give us shock, and Heaven are able to comfortably run in top 2 and Bill up at the end for the top 3. Heaven gets their DK Mountain pick, but Macy shrooms up immediately, but a banana snipe and laggy red puts Heaven back into the top spots pretty quickly. Burt comes through clutch with a shock lap 2, dodging all of us in cannon, and it's a good race for SL, but another GP win for Heaven. Maple starts out with Brody shrooming into first and Heaven bombing everyone on the bridge behind him. Heaven uses a shock lap 3 to cannon dodge, and Asmad picks up a ground star in second and ends up starring Brody, who is our only top spot, and it's a top 3 for Heaven. They keep their top spots on Moonview Highway, backing everything they can, getting another pretty easy winning race. Chromo Volcano, the spots stay mixed the whole way through until a Heaven respawn shock lap 3. It's not even a bad race for SL, but at this point we needed huge races to have any shot at coming back to win. And last race on Delfino, Heaven is able to cycle dodges, so even though we have shock, we have no real good place to call it, and it's a 12-0 for Heaven. Now, I truly believe we could have won this war. There were simply too many misplays that added up. The Garden shot call, not calling blue on Summit, and Bowser's Castle Week could have been a +13 race getting 2, 3, 4, 5, 9. Instead, it was only a +3 race with 2, 3, 4, 8, 10. Sam fell glitch after dodging, and Burke, fell off or something trying to get the bagger point. And I didn't even mention this, but on Maple Treeway, Macy got redded off before using Bill in 6th. That could have been a dodge on the obvious cannon shock and a chance at another top spot for us. We probably needed a bit of luck too though. Mario Circuit 3, we needed shock pretty badly to do anything that race, and we had a good chance of getting it, but we just didn't. I really think this is just a warm-up for us. Like I said, the lineup we ran had never really scrimmed before, and we were playing at 1 AM and still had a pretty decent showing against what should be the second highest seeded team. Directly after the SL war, Heaven framed chains into their GSC match versus KG. Heaven is again the favorite to win, but I think many people would agree that KG should have a better showing than SL here. However, there is one factor that greatly favors Heaven being the bagging battle. KG would be running Jay, who is simply not near Roast's level of skill at bagging. But as long as Roast doesn't steamroll him and pull shock every race, KG should keep things interesting. Again, we start with DDR. This time Asmac runs for 2 laps until a blue shell hits lap 3. Heaven cancels the blue while dodging Jan and Ultra, and Jaker finds himself sandwiched between the 1-3. He either fails or most likely gets lag owned on the wall glitch, and Heaven is able to get top 2. DK Mountain lap 1 is an easy run for Heaven until Batcake Golden's up lap 2, and then we see something interesting. Asmac goes for the right side of Cannon, which normally gives you a bad line into that next turn, but he ends up being able to throw a Nana directly into a red shell that would be targeting first. I think this is actually a decent spot to snipe someone, and I've never seen this before. Later on, Asmac hits a ground Nana and Jaker passes him, but he spams a red that hits Jaker off. It's looking like a good race for Heaven until KG Shock lap 3 TS's Asmac and dodges a few KG members for top 3. KG gets the Rainbow Road track pick and starts strong as Hadouke gets a TC and Asmac is bumped off lap 1. However, Roast makes the bagging strat, which allows Heaven to use an early shock to get back in the mix of things. But luckily for KG, Jay pulls a shock in 9th that dodges Havo, allowing them to get top 2. Garden's pick comes out for Heaven and they pull Shrooms lap 1, but the scales tip back into KG's favor as they all end up taking cut lap 2. Heaven dodges Asmac and Jan lap 3, and even though Asmac eats a fib, it's still an easy top 2 finish and Heaven gets the GSC points for GP1. GP2 starts on Sherbertland and KG is top 3 going into lap 3. Now, Asmac has a star, but he doesn't use it in 4th at first set, but Hadouke does use his Mega, and we can see Roast respawning, so they definitely did not have shock at this point. But Roast quickly pulls it at first set in 10th that dodges 3 Heaven players, as we can see Hadouke spams another Mega in 4th, and they end up finishing 2-3-4-6. On Mushroom Gorge, KG gets shock and is top 2 going into lap 3, so they simply use the shock to prevent any Heaven players from taking gap, and it's a good race for KG. KG starts strong on RBC lap 1, but all it takes is a blue and Heaven is able to shroom up into top 2. An easy bomb snipe comes out lap 3 and it's a top 3 for Heaven. Grumble Volcano is next and Havo's the only one to take Rock Hop lap 1, giving him a lead. He hits a nice back green on Asmac and Batcake is the only one to make Rock lap 2, giving KG top 2 break. Heaven Shot comes out dodging Asmac as he chains a blue, but he doesn't pull a shroom until he's after the shortcut and KG actually holds on to top 2. However, Heaven still gets the GSC points by a slim margin. Going into GP3, KG is only down 17 points. There is a penalty somewhere in those last 2 GPs, it was just a -5. I don't actually remember where it was. But Moonview Highway's picked and somehow Heaven gets into top 3 even though they're only starting in odd spots. Jan gets taken out by a bomb snipe lap 2 but Asmac holds down first but KG still gets 2-3-4. Coconut Mall is picked next and it's an easy run for Asmac in first until a KG shock lap 3. Roast made the first part of the bagging strat but failed the second and Jay was able to get shock and dodge KG. But it seems like Mike was caught in the blue explosion and Jan actually wins the exchange for first place, so it's a good race for Heaven. Mario Circuit 3 comes out and Asmac shrooms into first early but he fails to break a red. Later Hadouke Golden's into first and spots are pretty mixed up until another KG shock lap 3. It dodges 2 of them and 1 of Heaven. Batcake gets billed and Asmac hits a banana, but after all that craziness the spots end up being in favor of KG. Going into the last race, KG is still down about 18 points, and it's time for the BC3 Scrambler. Heaven makes cut in the top spots, while Jaker fails Ultra, Havo and Batcake both take normal cut, and Asmac makes Ultra, while Mike goes around lap 1. So Heaven is most of the top spots, and Roast is in 10th. Now I know this game has Cinderella stories and amazing comebacks, but when you're in that good of positions, it's going to be difficult for KG. And unfortunately for them, Roast does pull shock, which TS's them all on cut lap 3, which prevents them from taking it, while Asmac simply dodges in a bill, and it's lights out for KG and another 12-0 victory for Heaven. Now that was a fun one to watch, close the entire way through. I honestly don't know what KG can really do differently to win that war. Even though Jay obviously is not on the same level as Roast in the bagging department, he still got a good amount of shocks. It was really only Rainbow Road and then he admitted BC3 where he got outplayed. So I don't know if Helia over Jay would have made that big of a difference in that match particularly. But in my opinion, Ornan is a stronger runner over Havo, and considering how close this match was, it could have made a difference. I know we'll be seeing a myriad of different KG lineups, so I'm excited to see who they play in this rematch in the future. But I think with a little bit of luck, even with this lineup, KG definitely could have won this. On the other hand, I think Heaven was actually playing this war a bit better than they played SL just by judging off of Azmac's VOD footage. And I don't think it's that big of a surprise that they go undefeated this weekend, 24-0. Yeah, even with the long hiatus that they took, Heaven is showing to be one of the most powerful teams in the game, and I think they're easily going to be able to make playoffs here. The next match to be played would be XI versus Daisy. Now, again, any team XI plays is going to be the underdog, so Daisy really needs to fight here in order to have a shot. 2S made things close versus XI, but like I said in my prediction, I do think Daisy has a little bit of a weaker roster. They have Emil, who's obviously really great, but then Luke GB doesn't really play much right now, it seems like. He didn't play in the lineup that they end up using. And Dookie, Swig, and Sammy are just simply not on the same level as XI's runners. I think Swig has the most potential to grow to get there. He's obviously shown improvement pretty quickly, but just he doesn't have those years of gameplay and those hours that the other D1 guys have. And Sammy and Dookie both have experience in playing the top divs and have been playing for a pretty long time, but neither have become the super top tier player. We finally get a first race that's not on DDR. We get an RBC track pick, and Fox as the host does actually keep first for all of lap 1, which is pretty rare. Usually somebody shrooms up or drafts at the beginning. Xander's able to shroom up into second pretty late into the lap, and a back fib comes out onto Emil. They end up running until a blue lap 3, and a late shock for XI dodges Faisal and Fox, and they actually get top 4 here. It appears that Barney was shrooming in a golden into second right before the shot came, and they let him shroom up before they called it. RMC comes out for Daisy, as they're known for their more unconventional track picks. Swig pulls a TC and Fox shrooms away, and Emil, who is the only one to get into a top spot in lap 1, gets redded out, so XI actually is able to run in top 3. Lap 3, Emil takes cut again, but he's forced to go wide from a bomb snipe, and then he's either back nanned or nana sniped, and XI was just holding shock, and it's an easy top 2-4 for them. Daisy gets their track pick again. Thankfully for them, XI isn't just chaining running tracks here, and they do mix the spots up on Gardens, as Swig is able to get into first at the start of lap 2, but he's either sniped or redded out, so XI gets into 1-3-4, and again, Emil finds himself as the only one contesting those top spots, but he ends up getting pow-redded. Daisy uses a shock lap 3, dodges Sammy and Bill, and gets the others into set. Now Sully drops a star for Fox, so he takes cut, and they're able to just manage to keep top 2. A nana snipe comes out onto Fox late, but it doesn't matter, he just drafts back up, and XI actually managed to get top 3-5. XI finally gets their track pick, BC Wee, and they're able to keep their top spots at the beginning, and Fox blocks Glitch, but if you look at the mini-map, you might be able to see Emil actually taking left side, and he makes it, and that's kind of just how the rest of the race goes. Emil keeps first because Daisy's holding blue, and all of XI is just running behind him, and they end up getting 2-3-4. It was either shockless or XI holding shock. GP2 starts with Sherby. Daisy is able to shroom up pretty early into top 2, but a quick snipe by Fox here puts him into second for the race. A lap 3 shot comes out for XI, dodges 2 of them while Dookie manages to predict it, he also dodges, but the result is just another good race for XI. And then TF is picked, so XI just get another easy run. They're able to run in top 2 the whole way. Sully gets shocked again, dodges Barney pretty late for 5th, and honestly at this point it's just GG's. It was really GG's by race 3. They're down 90 points with 6 races left, and I don't think any team in the division could make that comeback against XI in only 6 races. Daisy did have a chance to get the GP points on the last GP, but XI just ends up closing it out 12-0. Something I found interesting was that the bagging battle was heavily in XI's favor. Sully just looked like a much more powerful bagger than Alex UK was, and I think the situation would have been the same even if they ended up using Merc. They were just controlling shock and preventing Daisy from really doing anything. The one shock that they did use was still a bad race for them. Now, XI of course is the strongest team, so yes, they did get steamrolled pretty bad, but I do think Daisy will be able to win some of these wars. They probably just need to tweak their lineup a bit, get Luke in there. I don't know how big of a difference Merc is over Alex, but I'm assuming he is supposed to be their main bagger. XI was just simply outrunning them, and Sully kept pulling shock, so Daisy couldn't really do anything to dodge back up. Seemed like most races, Emil was the only one up there. He just kind of needed some help with that frontal presence. That first race on RBC, he was in 3rd. He kind of hit an obvious tight backflip. That was a little bit bad, but aside from that, then on RMC, he shroomed up, he gets redded. He shrooms up again. I honestly think he busted a move in order to avoid that bomb snipe, in order to keep his top spot and prevent the top 3. But he hits the back Nana. I mean, even if he did keep his spot, XI was still getting 2-3-4 or 1-3-4. Regardless, it still would have been a winning race for them. And then on Gardens, like I said, I think Swig either got sniped out or redded out when he was in first going into lap 2. And then Emil was the only one up there, and he got power-redded, so they just lose their front spots again. BC Wee, he's the only one up there. He makes left side glitch, and he actually is able to hold down first, but no one else was able to get any of the top spots behind him. And then Sherby, he shrooms up again. He's in first. Swig is also up there with him, but Swig just gets sniped out pretty quickly. And then, like I said, from there it was kind of just GG's. They get their TF pick and run it, another winning race. So if they just have some more frontal presence helping out Emil, I'm sure that this team could do a lot better. And maybe just a little bit more of an even shot count. They could have kept this a lot closer. Now the next match to happen is KG versus IF. And even though IF did a lot better than KG last season, just looking at the runners, KG is going to be considered a bit stronger. You know, on paper they have Jaker, Mike, Ornan, Havo, Batcake, and Casper. Those names just have been around for longer. They carry a little bit more weight than what IF is going to be running, besides Barry. So even though KG did, like I said, a lot worse than IF last season, most people would consider KG to be favored in this matchup. And on the other side, IF is using a very interesting lineup. They have Snow and Barry as their staples. Then they're using newcomer Cormac, newcomer to their team at least, and Ryan British. Now, Cormac was on My 13 in the last couple seasons, I think, and I'm really interested to see how he does because he was obviously at a lot higher skill level than his teammates on My 13. So it'll be exciting to see how he does now that he has teammates that actually, you know, are a lot more capable and competent. And yeah, it'll be a lot easier for him to show off what he can do. And then Ryan British, I don't really know too much about how he plays or how good he is. Obviously, I know he is good. He's been around for a while, but yeah, it's hard for me to pinpoint exactly what this guy is capable of. But regardless, it is an interesting lineup that they're using those two guys. Usually the way they would run with Shadow or Victor or Kenzo or someone. So it is definitely a new lineup for them. And now we get some more track diversity with this race 1 being Sherby, and IF are the ones who pull shrooms early. Ornan is KG's only top spot going into lap 2, but it looks like he's pressured out. He takes kind of a weird angle, and IF actually gets into top 4 going into lap 2. Snow and Ryan drop back a bit, maybe to slag or try to get a dodge, and KG is forced really just to cycle items, try to break up IF's top 2 that they still have. The IF shot comes out, it's an easy dodge, and they actually end up finishing top 3. Snow holds first on DK Mountain until Blue comes out, and IF uses a POW to try to mitigate the damage. Batcake actually has a star, and he takes over into first. Lap 3, Batcake hits a ground shell on the mountain going down, so Snow gets back into first, and another T-POW comes out. It's hard to say really whose POW it was because IF ends up getting a good race here, but I think maybe Havo called it and the POW just came a little bit late, so he ends up kind of getting T-POW'd on that corner instead. It's hard to say for sure though. RBC gets picked from IF, and Cormac does draft up, but he quickly hits a wall. It doesn't matter too much though, as IF does keep 1-3 going up into lap 2 until Snow bonks out of the rail, and unfortunately Batcake has a TC right behind him, so it does pass, and after that IF is bottom 3. Pablo is trying to slag in a mega, but Snow gets past him, gets a nice golden into 4th. IF shot comes out and dodges Ryan in a bill. Snow is able to spam up mega, and it's a 1-3-4 for IF. Chroma Volcano comes out for KG as the spots stay pretty mixed up until lap 2, Havo and Casper both take rock. Lap 3, a KG shock comes and they respawn dodge, and they end up getting 2-3-4, so it's their first winning race, but IF takes the GP points. Race 5 is BC3, and we see 2 reds connecting onto KG right at the beginning, and then Snow and Barry both make Ultra and Shroomless. They pretty much run it until shot comes for KG lap 3, but it's not enough, and it's a really good race for IF. TF is picked from IF, and they get drafts. Ornan is up there contesting, but nope, he gets redded out. Batcake is also up there contesting lap 1, and he does manage to squeeze into first. I think he pulled triple shrooms and just shroomed up, but IF is still 2-3-4 until lap 2. Snow tries to stop Mega, and then Ryan gets hit, so they both kind of lose their spots, and Casper is just able to shroom up, and all of a sudden KG is in control of top 2, and they stay in control because Shot comes out for KG, cancels a blue that hits him, and dodges Havo and Bill, so they get top 2-4. We reset on Gardens. KG uses a POW lap 1 to get Havo in the air at the end, and a blue comes out from IF. So Casper tries to slow down here, and maybe Havo can pass him and he can take cut and dodge it, but it doesn't work out. Casper gets blued, but Havo does still take cut, but all of IF are behind him and they immediately pull another blue. So IF takes control of a lot of the top spots, but KG Shot comes out lap 3 at the chain chomp section, and they manage to break up a lot of IF spots, and it's a pretty even finish. We get to KC, IF ends up taking a majority of the top spots pretty early here as Ornan either fails Shroomba or it disappears or he's bumped or something. Casper gets hit out, but Batcake does shroom into first. However, we do see Batcake shrunken later on. He gets either zappered or sniped into the zapper or something. So Snow drops into 8th and he ends up pulling a star and just holds it all race until an easy dodge lap 3, and it's a top 3 for IF. And another GP point win for IF. GP3 starts with Stadium and KG gets into top 2 pretty early on. IF tries to shroom up and they do pull a blue at the end of lap 3, and Snow does shroom into first. KG gets Shock and it comes at a pretty random spot. It dodges Batcake and Ornan, but the pack is still really tight. Spots are still mixed up until Snow gets nanoed and then bombed. Ryan is hit directly after that, and then Bat Greens come out last turn. Somehow Havo avoids it all, and KG actually ends up getting top 4. They were down about 62 points going into GP3, so they really needed that race in order to make things realistic for them to come back. I mean, 32 points, or however it is, about 30 points in 3 races, that's a lot more doable than 60 points in 4 races. So they're making a comeback, and they get their Rainbow Road track pick, and Snow gets a TC really early on, so KG just keeps top 3 for a while until a blue comes out lap 2, but they still have a break in top 2, so they need a blues or POWs or Shock or something, and Dermo does risk a box, but he doesn't get it. Helia gets a box 10 and he pulls it first try. Ornan tried streaming up, but he loses the exchange with Ryan, but it doesn't really matter because he's simply able to cannon dodge behind the 3-4 spots. Havo is in there with him, but Havo unfortunately hits a fib. Ornan does manage to get into third, and KG survives and gets top 3. So now they're really making things interesting, and it is extremely doable now. But IF stops the snowball with a Delfino pick, and spots get pretty mixed up going into lap 2. IF is 1-3-5, but Dermo gets shocked very early on, so they have a lot of time to get dodges and kind of figure out what they want to do that race. Barry takes cut in first, Snow takes double, and they are in control of top 2 with Shock, so they're in a very commanding position until quickly a snipe comes out into Snow and then a blue comes out into Barry. So all of a sudden things get shaken up and spots are a lot more volatile. Snow pulls a POW, which is pretty good here as he's able to get all of KG after set, and he does pull Shrooms. The pack is really close. KG's still in 2-3. Even though Snow pulls Shrooms, they can salvage 3-4, but a shot comes out for IF. Cormac gets the easy dodge in the bill. Snow picks up the ground shroom, and it's lights out for KG. IF gets top 3, and they pretty much try to all run on GV2, but to no avail. They still end up winning the GP, KG does, so it's a 10-2 victory for IF. Wow, this was probably one of the most fun matches to watch. KG was really making a comeback those last couple races, man. Like, they were getting beat down pretty much the entire war. They didn't have a real standout race until Toad's Factory, where they broke up IF's top 2 4-6 starting positions, and they managed to get into pretty good positions. It didn't seem like IF was getting particularly lucky. I mean, they definitely were throwing some blues out there. I noticed Snow was pulling a couple of megas in good positions, but it's nothing crazy. Like, I mean, nothing where it would have been a 60-point deficit for KG, that type of luck. Yeah, I don't really know what they could have done differently. Just looking back at the VOD, I mean, it seems like one of the biggest things for me was that Mountain Lap 3 POW. I feel like that had to have been a KG POW. Because if it's an IF POW, Snow should call it, after he takes cut. And then just T-POWs the 2 people behind him. I mean, he gets T-POW'd a little bit. I don't know. I feel like he just takes cut, calls it when he's safe, and then you have a much better chance at getting the guys behind him off of the track entirely. And if it was a KG power, then they mistimed it pretty badly. They mistimed it horrifically, actually, because if they get Snow off there, I think Havo and Batcake get into top 2, and then Casper shrooms up at the end, and they might actually get top 3. So that's just one thing where I'm a little bit confused about. I feel like if that was a KG power, then they definitely fumbled the bag there a little bit. The other thing was on Delfino. At this point on Delfino, things were already pretty dicey with IF having shock, so they're kind of in a tight position. But I think Havo maybe could have tried to stop star Snow and Cormac once he was forced into his star. Because if he hits Cormac, I mean, that guaranteed takes one of their top spots off the board pretty, I mean, unless he's able to spam Bill or star again. And if he hits Snow, Snow isn't able to take double. But he also very easily could have chained into a Mega or a Blue Shell there, so I don't blame him for just going forward. Like, stop starring there is kind of a crazy, like, not a crazy play, but, I mean, if you don't end up hitting anyone, you probably just feel like an idiot. So it's not like it was the obvious right play, but it maybe could have made the impact that they needed. If he's able to take one of them out, then maybe IF only gets top 2, and then they might have a better chance because they don't have to all run the last race. But yeah, overall, pretty impressive win that IF gets here, considering they were using a relatively new lineup. And with that, we'll move on to the last match. Finally, the match you've all been waiting for, my D1 debut, SL versus KG. KG going again because we scheduled early with them. Now, I know we can beat KG, we've scrimmed with them many times in the past, however, we always seem to struggle when they have Jaker in lineup, which makes sense. He's, in my opinion, their most skilled player. I wouldn't say I was scared going into this match, it was just more so a little bit of nerves, a little bit nervous to see how I would do in a high-stakes war. But with that, let's get into the first race. First race is RBC, and I do get a box in 8th at first set. It's a golden. I golden up immediately as Sam hits a fib snipe, and I run for a lap, and I do my little back spam strat, and I'm able to hit their guy in second, but immediately after that, I mess up. There's this Nana out of cut that I wasn't expecting, so I lose a bit of time. Nothing too crazy, but then the next turn, I somehow miss my mini turbo. So that with the mistake I just made actually compounds, and I do end up losing a ton of time, so Ornan is very close to me. Because he's so close, I don't want to take rail in fear of a fib or banana snipe, because it's very, very easy to snipe someone on the rail when you're that close to them, so I end up going around and just trying to ego him and play for the fact that I will still be first out of rail, but he was close enough that to the point where taking rail, he's just able to overtake me and trails me. Looking back, what I should have done was, well, first of all, I shouldn't have lost all that time, but what I should have done is probably just risked rail, knowing that he would be able to pass me if he took it, because he was that close, or I could have gone onto the rail, backed on it, or just faked him out and went around afterwards, or do something. But yeah, looking back, he was just so close that I was going to get passed up on rail, and I should have known that. But either way, I still keep second, and we finished 2-3, so it's not even that bad of a race. Next race is CM, and the trajectory of this race was placed into my hands immediately. I know I can hit Ornan with this fib here. I know exactly where I'm throwing it. I'm going to throw it on the railing, whichever one he goes to. But unfortunately, it hits the banister and just kind of launches off to the side. I didn't know that that would happen. I thought it would probably just stick to the railing, like right at the bottom, but yeah, apparently if you throw it onto that banister part like too far, it's gonna fly out and hit an invisible wall or whatever happens. And what should have been a really easy fib snipe to interrupt top 2 ends up just accomplishing nothing, but I'm still in third, and I do end up outlining him after a shortcut lap 2. So I get into second barely, and I know that it's close, so I go for Infetrix instead of the box, and I just fail the first Infetrix, so I mess up again very badly, so he's just able to get back into second. They're top 2. I should have just went left at the left box, because I'm ahead of him on my screen, but knowing our lag, I was still ahead of him. You know, it's not European lag or anything like that. I am ahead of him. We're both NA. So I should have just went left, stolen the box from him, and just secured my second place. Instead, I'm contesting for third, and then I mess up again because I get a bounce before the last ramp, and it bounces me over it, so I miss my trick. I lose a shit ton of time, and Jaker's on my ass, and he's pressuring me with his red. I'm making making sure I can back my green properly to break it, and it kind of messes me up, so I just hit this banana that's in the road, and they actually end up getting top 3, so that race was on me. Then Gardens is picked, and my teammates take cut lap 1 and 2, so we're running it up for most of the race, and wouldn't you know it, I mess up again because I shroom way too early, and I get into front of Ornan here at the first set, and he just simply reds me, so I lose time. I should have just shroomed up after he had cycled his item. He'd probably spam that red and trying to get a shroom. So instead I get redded, and I'm still in third, but I lose time from that, so Batcake passes me as he shrooms into last set. So I have to make a play to try to snipe him, and I'm focusing too much on that I didn't realize that there was Nana's last turn, so I hit those, and instead of getting third that race, I just get fifth instead. It's still a good race for us, and we get our summit pick. And at the beginning, Jaker pulls a TC, and then Ornan gets bumped off cut, so a lot of them get taken out, and we're top 3 after I take this sketchball double. KG uses a POW lap 2, messes Sam up, and I'm forced to go around. I think I'm going to lose like a little bit amount of time, but I get POW redded, so I end up losing a lot of time. Kind of just forced in the back, so I don't end up finishing in a very good spot, but we still finish odd spots, so it's a winning race for us, but KG gets the GP points. DDR is race 5, I'm starting in the back, so I'm just spamming shrooms all race till I'm forced into this star. Pull blue and hold it as we are top 2. Let's swap over to Batcake POV to see a shock red come out on Brody lap 3, so it ends up being a pretty even race. Then we get a Bowser's Castle 3 pick. Quick greens take out KG in the top spots, and I drop back to back bomb, don't really hit as many people as I thought. I pulled triple reds, and I'm just going to try to keep griefing people on the shortcut, and I almost get enough time to take it uncontested shroomless, but a body does pop up at the end. I do pull blue again, and I have to hold it again until they pass out the cut lap 2. And going into lap 3, they did end up getting into top 4, and they do have shock. The pack is very close for BC3. There's no one very far behind or broken away, which is surprising. Macy has a star, and Sam chucks a blue. We know cut is going to be unblocked, and we know shock is coming, so Macy does dodge, but unfortunately doesn't make the shortcut. I needed to stay on shroomless here after I respawn and try to pass the TC off and take shroomless. Instead I just go around and I have the TC and I'm shrunken, and KG actually ends up just taking the shroomless behind us, and they make it, one of them makes it at least, so they do get top 3. They get the Rainbow Road track pick to keep things short. They get into top 4 very early on, and they run top 4 the entire race while they are holding blue. Up until lap 3, but once again, same scenario, they're top 4, but the pack is super close here. Again, surprising for Rainbow Road, and all it really takes is Brody shrooming up, and he gets into first. Macy also shrooms up, chains a mega before cannon, and then uses the mega, so we're somehow in top 2, and like I said, they were holding blue, so they throw it, but it splits, and it hits Mike on the right path. And I don't really know where Sam comes up from, but we do finish the race in top 2 after them pretty much running it the entire time. The last race of the GP, we do get our DK Mountain pick, and I'm redding people all of lap 1 as we stay in top 2 for lap 1. I end up pulling blue again, so I have to hold it again until Mike stop stars me on the bridge, and wouldn't you know it, one box later, lap 3, they pull the blue, so we only end up finishing 1-4 instead of top 2, and it is another winning GP for KG. So we're down 28, it's not too bad, but we need winning races here in order to come back. We get our Maple Treeway pick, but 3 of us are bombed right out of cannon, and Macy does lose first. Luckily, we pull blue pretty early, and we're able to stay in 2-3 the entire race after, until Brody gets a ground star, and we T-POW first. So Brody does get into first, but they were holding blue, they throw it. We tried to cancel, but Batcake does end up just getting first anyway, but we still get 2-3-4. We get our stadium pick, but our beginning is pretty bad. We kind of just get hit out, and we don't really pull any mushrooms. Lap 2, I pull a golden. Burke has the shock early here, and someone is using a bill, and oh.
What the hell? Oh my God, no way,
Yeah, that is a pen. We use shock at lap 3, it dodges 2 of us, and we get an okay race, we get the 2-3, but they ended up racking a -40 with those penalties, so we are actually up 16 points, which honestly isn't that much still, even though that was a big momentum swing. KG is still very close to us with 2 races left. We get our sherbet pick, and KG has a much better start than we do. We pull a TC in our kind of mid-bottom spot, and they're just able to get into top 2 and keep top 2 until lap 3. Brody just throws a red, and it hits Ornan. He ended up backing his only protection, so he's redded out. I shroom up into 4th, and I spam a mega on him, and now we're 2-3-4, and we have the shock, but we don't use it while I'm in my mega because we don't really have eyes on people in the back. We'd also probably just be shocking them into set while only I'm dodging. The spots are really tight at the end, and we end up using shock at the last second to cancel a blue onto Brody, and I was in a mega, so we do get 2-3-4-6. So we played pretty safe that race because all we really needed was, +5, a +7 in order to extend our lead just a tiny bit more to force KG into needing, a really big race. If we played risky with that shock and they ended up salvaging a winning race off of it, one of them dodges in a star or something, and they get 2-3 out of it or 1-3 or something like that, it wouldn't take as much for them to come back from the last race. But instead, we now have a pretty sizable lead going into Cupid Cape. I'm chilling in the back for most of the race. The pack is, again, pretty tight. No one has broken away, but they do pull shock some point at lap 2. So instead of just shrooming up, I sit in 8th on every set that I can. I'm trying to contest them for the stars and prevent them from getting dodges. And I do end up pulling a star myself. And I cycle it at the last set, lap 2. I don't even chain, but I thought for sure that they would use shock because we were top 2 at that point, and our top 2 was just crossing after the first set, but they don't use it. I'm able to chain into another star at the zipper set, and I hold on to it for a little bit and use it near the water stream set because, again, we are top 2 and they aren't really doing anything. They kind of need some blues or some, dodge into triple reds to make a play here, but the shock still doesn't come out. Ornan does end up getting a mega, and he chains it on one of the separate item boxes in the water stream, so that's when they use shock. But at this point, we are already broken in top 2, so Ornan needs to make some type of miracle play, and it doesn't happen for KG, so we take home the dub 8-4, and KG gets their 3rd loss of the season start. I mean, what can you really say? That penalty swung the momentum in our favor by so much, even though, like I said, they were still in contention for winning. They easily could have came back and won. 16 points is not a big enough lead with 2 races left against a team like KG. But, I mean, they were definitely had to have been a little bit tilted and demoralized after those penalties, because it wasn't an accident. Sherby bumped someone off, or if someone was taking rock on Grumble and the bagger was in a star on accident. It wasn't really like that. It was more of just a bad play. There's zero reason why Helia should have built there, because even if he does hit Burke, Burke's just still in 10th. Burke still hits a box at first set in 10th while Helia's in Bill there, like 100%. So he's probably just getting the shock back anyway. Even if he doesn't, he's still in 10th because Helia has to build up, and Burke's just still going to be in 10th for the rest of the race. So honestly, I think it was just a rage bill. I think he was tilted that Burke was outbagging him. And it was a terrible play because it costed them the war, let's be honest. Even though we did bring things close, Maple Treeway, we had a good race. Sherby, we had a good race. In Stadium, we did end up having a decent race. It was an okay race. We did bring it back. Without Pens, we'd only lose by 8, but being up at the end did affect our playstyle. We could afford to play a little bit safer. We could have made the comeback. Maybe on Sherby, we can use a riskier shock with my Mega or something like that, and get a huge race off of it. It's possible, but let's be honest, the -40 is really what costed it. I don't think we were going to win unless we got a huge race on Stadium somehow without the penalties, but we did have shock, and we didn't even have dodges lap 2, so it's hard to say. But so just to look back on my performance in the war, I played pretty badly, I would say. My mistakes definitely costed in those first couple races. RBC was just some, minor slip-ups. It happens. That shouldn't be happening, but just missed my mini turbo, and the banana kind of faked me out. I definitely misjudged how close Ornan was. If I knew that he was going to be that close to the point where he would beat me out of rail, then I probably would have just risked rail, so I misjudged that. But it didn't cost too badly. Still kept second. What really sucked was missing the fib snipe on CM. because I knew exactly where I was going to throw it, and I thought for sure I would hit him, but to see it bounce off of the wall just really disappointed me, because I would have been in second most of that race. All my teammates were pretty much stuck in the back, so I could have hopefully kept second, maybe back spammed the 3-4 positions in order to give myself a break and maybe keep that spot, but that definitely cost it on CM, how badly I drove it. And then Gardens we already talked about. I honestly thought for sure I was just going to snipe back cake. That's kind of why I lost paying attention, and I just didn't see the bananas because I was so focused on trying to hit him, but I didn't, which sucked. So yeah, just a couple of minor mistakes there. And then on Rainbow Road, I also was one of the first people to shroom up at the end. I would have been in first, and I probably would have been the one who got blued if I had just made my shroom cut. But I didn't make it for some reason. It looked super weird looking back on it. I honestly thought for sure I was making it, but I don't know. I don't really practice that cut that often, so it happens. And aside from that, the only other major error that happened on our team was Macy failing the shroomless cut after dodging on BC3, because that ended up being a huge race for them. And Macy easily could have gotten first there, because we knew the shock was coming. We knew that we had a good chance of dodging it and making something happen and interrupt the top 4, but I think if we clean up our driving all around, especially myself, I'm talking more about myself more than anything, but if we just play a little bit cleaner, I think we can easily win against this team without the penalties. We were playing at, what was it, like 12:30 or 12 o'clock, something like that at night, so that's definitely not our ideal playing time. We definitely get a little bit tired the later in the night it goes, so I would say that we played well considering how close it was the entire way through. We were really never down more than 30 points, and we just kind of had a saving grace, and we were able to capitalize off of it. So that GP saved our momentum by quite a bit, because we would have had 0 points going into next week after 2 wars, which would have been very disheartening and hard to come back from. Instead, we have a clean amount. We have eight solid ones, and as far as the rest of the division goes, I think the big story has to just be KG going 0-3. I was expecting them to start pretty strong. To lose to both us and IF is kind of a bad sign, because those are definitely two of the weaker seeded teams. Teams you would think that KG would be capable of beating. Heaven, not so much. You can maybe expect a loss there, but to lose to both IF and SL, that's kind of a bad look. And the other interesting thing, I think, with looking back on these matches is 2S and their performance against XI. I think them making that war very close shows that that team might be a powerhouse, and they could very well perform great this season and contest in the playoffs, just basing off of that one war alone, where they kept it very close with the clear #1 seed in the div. And that is it for me, guys, this week. This took a little bit longer to string together than I thought it would, so in the future, I'm probably going to have to chop up the wars a little bit more, maybe only focus on the highlights, kind of cut out the races where people are just kind of running blueless, shockless, really only focus on the interesting things, the comebacks, when people just break away and the other team has no shot at coming back. We'll cut that off. There's going to be some matches where I don't have any POVs, so I'll just have to talk about the results, but yeah, in the future, I'm definitely going to have to chop this up. I mean, this was only 6 matches. This wasn't even 8, because SE didn't play either of their matches yet, so. But yeah, let me know what I can change, if I should just focus on the matches that I play in, because I know I can give a good amount of detail and introspection into what happens in those games, and I know that can be pretty interesting for people. So let me know if you want me to go deeper into my matches, or kind of just really briefly glancing over the landscape of the other teams. But that's it from me for now. Thank you for watching, guys. I will see you in week 2.